I'm Janae. I'll be simplifying the science and history behind baking so that you can create your favorite desserts in a way that you like best. I make everything in the dessert realm, so I didn't really know how to start this off. So we got a book at the library written by Duff Goldman and Sarah Gonzalez. Gonzalez. Called Duff Bakes, and I'll be doing every recipe from his book for our first season, and I'm gonna somehow make each recipe my own. So I chose his peanut butter cookie recipe because peanut butter cookies were one of my favorite cookies, and when I saw that he had one, I was super hyped. And so I thought it would also be really simple to understand the science behind cookies, so that's what I'm starting with. Bo! Do you want a treat? Let's get you a treat.
One of these episodes we're going to be making both of treats.
We're going to call them summer numbers. So first, we're going to cream our butter. Magic trick. So the reason why we need butter in the recipe is because the butter is the thing that protects the flour from creating a lot of gluten, which would make a really tough cookie. And so this and or oil is our way of protecting the gluten. And don't cream your butter with anything else, but you can use sugar along with it. But I like doing it plain. So once it's partially creamed, we can add our sugar. If we want a tender cookie, we definitely need sugar. And if we didn't put sugar in it, that would taste like a dog treat. So we're putting sugar in it for us humans and for flavor and science. Measuring in 2 cups. Always flatten it out, but don't pack it down. You can't really do that with sugar, but you can with flour. So I'm doing 1 cup at a time. Alright, so we're done with the sugar for now, so I'm gonna set it aside. So now I'm putting in 2 tablespoons of molasses for flavor. Molasses to me is a bit like a thick syrup that is definitely not as sweet as it. So molasses goes like really well with sugar, and with molasses mixed with regular white sugar, it creates a really nice brown sugar flavor, which pairs really nicely with the butter, peanut butter. So that's what we're using. Did I use 1 or 2 tablespoons there?
I don't know.
Can you look on your phone and see? Because if not, that's wrong. Very wrong.
Yes. Talking to the camera, explain what you're doing.
I forgot to add the second one because I had to look something up about molasses. So I'm adding the second one now. I'm going to scrape down the sides so that everything can get mixed in properly.
Explain what you're doing now.
So next I'm going to add in the vanilla extract, the peanut butter, and the eggs. Put in some vanilla extract, which is also just for flavor. It brings out the flavor in a lot of stuff. I'm doing 1 tablespoon. I'm gonna mix that in before we start putting in any of our other stuff. I'm putting in our crunchy peanut butter. 2 1/4 cups peanut butter.
Remember to look at the camera over there.
1 1/4 cups crunchy peanut butter. Alright. It's also another great thing that tiny spatulas are used for.
What?
Getting goopy things out of jars.
And what does the peanut butter do?
The peanut butter adds or the peanut butter flavor that we want instead of using peanut extract, and it also gives it a really nice creamy texture. And Duff chose the crunchy peanut butter. Don't exactly know why, that's his choice. If you want to ask him about that, you gotta find your own way to contact him. No, I'm actually following his recipe with the crunchy.
Oh, so you're following his
I'm
recipe, you're not-
scandalous.
You're not making your own.
I'm making it my own by putting my favorite recipe on it, so it's good. It's all good. So now I'm just gonna add the fourth cup in. Alright, so next we're adding eggs. I'm using two large eggs, and what the eggs do are by themselves, flat out, they act like a glue for the entire recipe. And if you just use egg yolks in something, then they're acting like a thickener kind of thing. And if you just do whites, normally when you just do whites in a recipe, you whip them up, and that gives whatever recipe you're making a lot of air and fluffiness. So we're just using regular eggs to glue all the recipe together. Alright, so now we're putting in the baking soda, salt, and baking powder. Alright, it's a teaspoon of each. So I'm doing a teaspoon of baking powder, and baking powder, when mixed with acids, creates a lot of bubbles, and so that'll give it a lot of air, but it's only activated with salt, and that will make our cookie rise and then fall, so it has a really nice tender texture. And to balance that all out, we're going to use some baking soda, so baking soda is, did I mix those up? I think I may have mixed those up. It's both going in the recipe, but baking soda or baking powder? So when I was explaining that, I mixed up baking soda and baking powder. Try never to do that. But they're both going in the recipe, it's fine. But baking soda is the thing that makes bubbles when baking, and so that is the thing that'll be activated by salt along with baking powder, which will make your cookies rise and fall to make a tender cookie. And baking powder is basically baking soda with cornstarch and cream of tartar in it. Alright, so if you have a recipe with baking powder in it and cream of tartar, don't leave the cream of tartar out just because the baking powder already has cream of tartar in it, because then your then your cookies won't rise, and they'll also taste kind of like a penny or something. So put the cream of tartar in. Which one did I put in? Oh, I need to put baking soda in. Alright, so we're gonna mix those in.
What are you doing?
And now we're putting salt in to activate the baking soda and powder. Alright, so when they ask for a pinch of kosher salt,
You're using kosher salt? No, that's table salt. Kosher salt is more coarse,
okay,
and you don't want the coarseness when you're making cookies, you want it to be smooth.
but he calls for kosher salt.
The kosher salt is in that little jar.
And Duff's grandma chose this because it's pure. So kosher salt has a different texture than table salt, which you would normally use in a cookie. But for this one, apparently Duff's grandma was old school because she was old school. And so we're using kosher salt, which doesn't have stuff added to it, and it's kind of coarse but more flaky. And table salt is pretty fine, and it has iodine added to it. And so we're gonna put a pinch of kosher salt in. And when they say about a pinch, it's about an eighth of a teaspoon. So do a decently big pinch. I'm looking at my recipe to remember what flour does. Oh yeah, I remember what flour does. Without looking at it, I'm smart. Alright, before I add my flour, I'm gonna wipe down the sides again. Smells really good. So we're using 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and it is basically the base of the cookie, and it's the thing that we use the butter. Well, the butter is the thing that protects this stuff from creating a lot of gluten, and we don't want to mix it too much, over mixing it, because then that'll create a lot of gluten and we'll have a really tough cookie.
Are you mixing your ingredients together at a time?
So I'm adding the flour in slowly, once, so that I have a smooth dough, and that it's and so I don't have random lumps of flour in it, and 2, so that it can get to know all the ingredients and create some gluten, but we don't want a lot, so I'm gonna try not to overmix it. So I'm wiping down the sides again to get everything combined. A little bit longer to get a nice sticky ball, and then the recipe says that I can taste it, so I'm gonna taste it. Alright, I think that's about good. Okay, okay. So it says in the recipe to taste it, and it tells me to. Normally you don't eat raw cookie dough because of the eggs, but everyone does. So I'm gonna take a little bit.
Janae, smaller.
Yeah, you need small bites on camera, otherwise you can't talk.
Is this okay? I'm really good. Taking a drink. So now, I'm gonna get it all off the paddle, scrape it up, and then I'm gonna cover the bowl and put it in the fridge for about 45 minutes so that all the fat in it can solidify, because then if I don't put it in the fridge, then it'll spread out a lot, and it'll get really flat and crispy, which we don't really want. And so we're gonna chill it for a while so that they don't spread out as much, and we're gonna put the oven at 350, right? We're gonna put the oven at 375, so that that's the average temperature for cooking cookies. Because if you have them warm and you just have them like a batter and then put them straight in the oven, you need to have a lower temperature and bake it longer, and it'll be more cakey. So I'm gonna get some plastic wrap, cover that, and put it in the fridge. No, why I'm covering it. What?
But you explained it, you said I'm gonna cover it and then move it up, but you can explain it while you're doing it.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm covering it. Why am I covering it?
Down.
Guys don't cover anything.
Just because recording stops just now.
Oh no. So while that's in the fridge, I'm gonna preheat the oven to 375. When the cookies come out of the fridge, I'm gonna take a little dough from each one and kind of stick it so that it'll stay down. In the meantime, I'm gonna eat that. I'm gonna grab little bits of the dough, like very, very little, and I'm gonna use it as a glue to stick my parchment down. Maybe. Yes. This is parchment. This is a silicone mat. Make them about the size of golf balls, and because I don't want to warm up the fat. And he tells us to put sugar on the bottom of the balls. I have no idea why. You have to find a way to contact him and ask him that, because I don't know. But if you do find out, please tell me, because I would like to know. So in the 14th century, the Aztecs invented a cookie that used a lot of peanut butter, which they called peanut butter cookie. Peanut butter cookies did not become an American favorite till about the 1900s. In 1919, George Washington Carver, he started promoting the ways of using the peanuts, and in a research bulletin, how to grow the peanut and 105 ways of preparing it for human consumption. Catchy name. But the very first recipe that was published from 1932 was done by the Gazzetti, and it called for crisscross fork marks on the top, which nowadays it's pretty much just going to be a habit of putting crisscross fork marks on the top, which I'll do here after I roll all the balls. So these don't expand as much, like they don't flatten out as much as the other as normal cookies would, and that's another reason why we flatten them out with the forks. And so I'm putting them about an inch apart each, and then when we flatten them, they'll be pretty much a little less than a half of an inch apart. And so I have four rows and 3 in each, and then I'm gonna do it on that one, and we're gonna see how parchment is different from the silicone, which I don't know yet. And keep in mind, all of this stuff I'm doing is also to help me learn, so that's why it's a bit scattered. I'm not trying to make these balls too pretty because they're gonna get fork marks on them. So, and also they're gonna be covered in no-bake cookies. So, these cookies could like pretty much go for pretty much any type of event or anything, or just randomness at home when you're hungry and you want a peanut butter cookie. Now for the crisscross fork marks, you just like barely press down, but you don't want to press too hard because you still want it real soft in the middle. And these will expand a bit in the oven and crack, but now we're just keeping them small. Okay.
Say thank you, Mommy, may I explain about?
Bully yell.
He's probably my best friend.
It's like got bigger as I went along. I still have like 2 pans left of dough. Alright, so now that I got them all forked, we're gonna put them in the oven for 10 minutes. And the trays are on top of each other. Not literally, there's a rack in between. But the one on the bottom will have a different color because it's not directly put to heat. But they will cook the same, almost. They won't have the same color. And they'll have the same textures and taste. After I put everything away, I took a ball of the dough, I rolled it in sugar, put it on the plate and put it in there. And then Jonathan caught me and was like, hold on, we gotta record this. and I don't even know what it's gonna do. I was just gonna put it in the oven, in the microwave for like 2 minutes and see what happens. So I'm gonna cook it right now.
Show it to the camera.
I can't, it's hot.
What happened?
I think the plate cracked.
So let's not do that again. Where did it crack? Yeah, don't do that again.
I'm sorry.
Cause that's like a $13 plate.
I'm sorry. Oh, don't put it on hot. Don't put it on a cool. That's gonna shatter it.
Well, you already broke it.
Well, yeah, but then it'll be a bigger mess to clean up.
So, what'd you learn there? Don't.
That this kind of one doesn't go in there.
Not on Mom's China.
Scooch it over so I can see. Tilt
Yeah.
it up a bit.
I don't think Duff said to do that.
And of course not. This is just me being random.
Yeah, you random is costing me money.
What's the texture?
It'll be kind of like. Remember, like this is like 2 seconds after we took it out, but it's still kind of hot. It feels like if cake were a cookie. So it just feels like a soft cake. I mean, soft cookie.
What does it taste like?
Just like a peanut butter cookie. We gotta take those out of the oven first.
Okay, go ahead and do that. Make sure your workspace is clear.
The ones on the silica mat, this one looks a lot softer, and these look like they are more done and kind of cracked. But that could also be the effect of it being underneath. But I think that's just the color. Don't know quite yet. We'll taste. Well, when we taste it, we'll see. We're gonna take these off, put them away, and then we're gonna do the no bake cookie part tomorrow. All right, see you tomorrow. Oh, okay. So this doesn't really apply to a recipe, but at Christmas, my brother's now wife, but it was his fiance back then, and she asked for me to make her some salty hot chocolate, and I was having a brain fart day like today, and I put a lot of salt in it. I think I ended up putting about a tablespoon of salt in a cup of hot chocolate. It was awful. But
Did she like it?
no. We dumped that out and remade it with like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt.
So it's really salty.
Yeah.
And she married Jane.
She married Jane anyway. She moved far away from me. She's in Utah.
They don't have the salt flats?
They don't have salt in Salt Lake City, of course.
Apparently. They have the salt flats.
I'm dyslexic.
Those are dyslexic.
Yeah, and I have green ones too to help with my headaches.